Idyllwild Arts respectfully acknowledges the Kawishba Kawiagna, also known as Cahuilla Band of Indians, and all 9 sovereign bands of Cahuilla people who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and continue to steward this land for all future generations.
Idyllwild Arts Foundation is proud to present One World, One Idyllwild, the series. In conversation with Pamela Jordan, the series brings together thought leaders, creatives, influencers, and changemakers, highlighting the work of citizen artists whose careers and lives have been shaped by the transformative power of art.
Have the courage to lead.
The best thing that ever happened to me was the Northridge earthquake.
Artists throughout the world, we are the speakers of truth. We are the most authentic expression of the day, of the times.
Be determined to get the most you can from every opportunity. And where you don't see opportunities, ask for them.
Great leaders recognize that the work requires urgent patience.
You can learn about classroom management, you can learn about the new curriculum, you can learn about the new way to teach whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if those students feel that love, they're more likely to listen, they're more likely to trust, they're more likely to be vulnerable. And in that space, that's where you can change some kid's life.
From Idyllwild Arts Academy in Idyllwild, California, I'm Pamela Jordan with One World, One Idyllwild, the series. My guest today is Maya Osterman-Van Grack, a graduate of Idyllwild Arts Academy and the University of Colorado, where she graduated with a focus in applied theater through the Interactive Theater Project, a theater ensemble utilizing theater of the oppressed techniques to address social justice issues on campus. After graduating from the University of Columbia, Maya became an assistant director for the Interactive Theater Project, where she began to learn the art form of facilitation. She then created the ACTivism Theatre Ensemble, a company of high school and college students performing an educational outreach prevention play for the Sexual Assault Victim Advocacy Center throughout Colorado. Maya created and toured the one-woman show, For Sale, addressing sex trafficking in America throughout the country. She then worked with survivors of sex trafficking and social workers on processing their trauma through the power of theater. She founded Restorative Theater in 2014 at the Dillon Youth Detention Center. She joined Mirror Image Arts in 2015 and is now the Executive Director of Programs. Mirror Image Arts' mission is to disrupt the school-to-prison pipeline with a passion and purpose to imagine and create collective liberation for all. I spoke with Maya on January 29th, 2024. Maya, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you coming in and having a conversation with me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be back on campus.
So we have several alums running around today, which is so exciting for the students and the teachers. And so you know that journey that takes you to a boarding school, which is very unusual for most of our students. Tell me about growing up, tell me about your childhood, and what led to you coming to Idyllwild Arts.
Oh man, yeah. Well, I was born in Israel. I hold dual citizenship, and so that's a very big part of my identity is being American and Israeli. I think because my household, there were a lot of Israeli elements to it. I remember for 4th of July, it was not until way later that I realized that people didn't eat hummus and falafel and pita, that's not what you do for 4th of July. But we moved to Florida, to Fort Myers, when I was in 1st grade. And I spent most of my childhood there with my parents, my older brother, and then actually the year before I came here, my little brother was born. So we have a 10-year gap. And I think I was an outlier. I was not like a theater kid. I didn't do a ton of theater. I played a lot of sports. I, ran around outside a ton. And it just happened to be that in high school, at my regular high school, my advisor was the theater teacher. And she was like, you should really audition for the play, one of the plays. It was You Can't Take It With You. And I was like, okay, fine. And auditioned, read the play and auditioned, was excited more about the quirky sister who's like the ballerina. And instead they cast me as the ingenue. And that was a pretty big upheaval in the theater department that I just came in and did this play. And I remember really liking it, but I didn't love the part because it just wasn't very much fun. So I didn't audition again. I kind of realized that I had an interest, and I actually pivoted. And my mom was super involved in Planned Parenthood all growing up, as was my paternal grandmother. And so it just so happened that our local Planned Parenthood had a theater company called Teen Source. So I stepped away from theater in my school and joined this theater company that was a part of Planned Parenthood. And so it was twofold. One, we went around to middle schools and high schools, and we performed plays around teen pregnancy and AIDS, HIV awareness. But they also had a facilitation component because they had learned that teens were way more open to talking about the real issues around teen pregnancy and safe sex with peers versus adults. We got trained to lead conversations, and we were trained in learning all of the myths and science behind pregnancy and AIDS, HIV, so that we could also educate and bring awareness. And so without realizing it, I was already kind of on a path to facilitating around educational components with a theater tie to it. And so I did that in high school. And then I just remember the spring play was A Piece of My Heart, which is a 4-woman play all about the Vietnam War, and they played different characters, and I had no idea that that's what the play was at school. And I came back and I watched it, and I remember going to the theater teacher, Miss Goldberg, and saying, why didn't you tell me about that play? Like, that's the type of stuff that excites me. A sweet, soft play with an ingenue is just not, if you could see me, it's just not it's not who I am. But watching theater that really moved me and made me think about the world and connect to people and their stories was something that just ignited me. And the moment I saw that play in conjunction with the work I was doing, I was like, I have to like immerse myself in theater. I definitely have the Jewish OCD in me, where I'm pretty like, once I get stuck on something, I really have to dig in. And so I was like, I have to just do theater. I need to get in it. And I have the most incredible parents who are extremely supportive, and just started doing research, and we learned about Idyllwild. And I have family in Palm Springs and LA. And so it felt, even though it was a far journey from Florida, very safe that I could be close to family. And so we took the trek out here, and I auditioned. And I don't know if they call it this anymore, but they called you a one-year wonder when you were a senior. And so I came just for my senior year.
And how did Idyllwild Arts cultivate, your interest in social justice, really?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think at that time it was way more like subversive, because there wasn't a lot of social justice theater, right. But the mere act of what this place is, in my mind, is social justice. And what I mean by that is, it was the first time that I was in a school where there were openly gay kids, where the president of our class was trans, and his entire senior photo project was of his transformation. And so in terms, especially around LGBTQ, that was something that did not exist in Florida, where I was. And so to see people so freely being themselves was a revolutionary act. I had been at a very small private school from first grade to 11th grade where you had to fit into a very small box. We had to wear uniforms. I mean, you were supposed to fit a mold. You were supposed to learn in a certain way and act in a certain way. So the moment I came here and I could be who I wanted to be, but also see everyone else doing that was an amazing experience. And then also to start to see that there are different ways to learn and be engaged with education was something else that for me was really pivotal in where I am now, for sure.
And then bridge the gap for college. How did you select your college? What were you looking for?
Yeah, so it's so funny you ask that. One of the things I remember writing on my college entry paper was coming from Florida and the beach, what the drive up here meant to me. And every time I'd go up and down the mountain, getting into Idyllwild and the trees for me was the first moment that I also realized that mountains are my home and really ground me. I remember I would walk through the trees just all the time on this campus. And so when I went to look for school, I was like, I need mountains and trees because that I feel my most artistic self in nature. And so when I was looking for schools, family was also very important. So I'm very spiritual. The Jewish holidays, there are a lot of them. And if you don't have family to celebrate them, it can feel really lonely. So I remember, when I was here, I'd drive down the mountain for all of the high holidays and be with my grandparents. And so when I looked for schools, it needed to still be near family. And I have aunt and uncle in Colorado. And so I had remembered visiting, actually for my cousin's bar mitzvah, Boulder. And I was like, well, this is beautiful. And so that was my top choice, was I wanted to be in Boulder. And I just remember writing something about wanting to continue that journey of seeing the trees when I drive and when I walk in my space. And so that was a pretty big part of it.
That's I think that's so important for people to hear. Idyllwild Arts, I always say you're not passing it on your way to somewhere else.
No.
This is the destination. And it resonates exactly as you say, people who are choosing to be here, choosing to be in the mountains, choosing to be with other students who have a passion and are being called to this place. It is what we all share, right? So thank you for sharing that. And the other thing that really just stands out with your story to me, I think, we have a lot of students who have never thought about boarding school, right? Until they thought, where can I study the arts at the level I want to? And I think that's just something that people need to know. These are not, I was in junior boarding school and my parents went to boarding school. It's hard to leave home. It's hard to leave family and come to a school like this, but it becomes the foundation really of everything that you do.
100%, for sure.
If you're just joining me, my guest today is Maya Osterman-Van Grack, Executive Director of Programs for Mirror Image Arts. We'll be right back.
Idyllwild Arts Academy is an independent boarding arts high school whose mission is to change lives through the transformative power of art. Located just 2 hours inland from Los Angeles and San Diego and 1 hour from Palm Springs, the school sits on 205 acres of forested land in the San Jacinto Mountains. Academy students receive a challenging college preparatory academic curriculum while engaging in pre-professional training in their chosen arts discipline. The school is also home to its world-renowned summer program that serves children starting at age 5 through adults age 95. Idyllwild Arts believes that art is the greatest teacher of humanity and that the practice of creativity, no matter the ultimate expression, hones each individual's desire and ability to craft global change. To learn more, visit idyllwildarts.org.
Welcome back. Today I'm speaking with Maya Osterman-Van Grack, Executive Director of Programs for Mirror Image Arts. So you have done and are doing some pretty interesting projects that I just want to ask you about. The Interactive Theater Project. Tell me about that. That was at the University of Colorado, right?
Yeah. So that project unfortunately does not exist on that campus anymore, but I was blessed to be a part of it. My mentors, Trent and Rebecca, created it. They are still my mentors today. And every question has a leading story. So every freshman, when they went to CU for, I think almost 15 years was the program, went through part of an orientation where they put 300 of us into an auditorium, and we watched a 7-minute play about drinking on campus and sexual assault. And then after the scene happened, the 4 characters from the scene sat in chairs, and the audience got to ask the characters questions to better understand the choices they made, what they were thinking, why they did what they did. And then there was a conversation afterwards. But I remember being in that audience and a group of 318-year-olds who were, so bored and lackadaisical and just, were like, just get me through orientation, light up during this performance.
Wow.
Yelling across the room around victim blaming and what does it look like and what does it mean and who's responsible in this community for drinking, and just ignite. And I was hooked. I was like, what is this? What is happening? And then the scene ended, and then the facilitators, Trent and Rebecca, my mentors, opened up to just a larger collective conversation around community, responsibility, educating a bit around what does consent mean, just this whole experience. And at the end they said, and we're actually holding auditions if there's anyone who wants to be a part of this. And I was like, me, yes. So I went up to them, and said, I just graduated from Idyllwild Arts Academy. I was at a performing arts boarding school. I want to do this. And so I auditioned and I got in. And it was by far the most important thing that I did in my college career. We met once a month, and it was the most diverse group of kids on a not very diverse campus. And so for me, it did many, many things. One was, as a white student, it was really the first time in my life I had lived a very affluent life where I was just learning the experiences of specifically the BIPOC students on our campus and what that experience was. That opened my eyes to a lot of just a better understanding, and it was a huge piece in me then picking my classes. So by being in that program, one of the things that I did was I just kept taking U.S. history from different perspectives. So I took women in U.S. history, Black history, Native American history, to hear the same story, quote unquote, but unraveling and truly understanding it from the many different perspectives of the same experience and how different those stories were. And so that really was a big piece of then how I navigated my education on campus and the type of classes that I picked. But we also dug into the work and got messy with each other and talked about every ism and the intersectionality and how it shows up on campus and how it has shown up in our lives, and just really got into that work. And then we would create and perform scenes and take them to all of the different departments on campus, and then you would hear how all these other students were interacting with these scenes. And so the widening of my worldview to just understand how people are perceiving the world around them and how much of their childhood and lived experiences influence their making of meaning was fascinating. And then at the end, they always, Trent and Rebecca, after the scene, have a talk back where it's like, okay, let's like really unpack what just happened. And I remember a lot of times, you know, we were busy, we were all students, so a lot of the other performers, once they did the scene, they would leave. But I would skip class to just sit and listen to the conversations that happened afterwards, because to me that was just as enthralling as getting to be a performer and do the work. And so that led me to a million different things that are in my bio. But I also then had the opportunity to stay on after college for 2 years to truly be mentored by Trent and Rebecca to learn how to facilitate and how to direct this style of theater.
Did you ever see, because you said that program is not there anymore, during your time there, did you ever see the interest of the students kind of wane, right, as time went on?
So I'm smiling because it's quite the question. I had also no idea how much politics were a part of higher education, and that's when I also learned how important it is as our civic duty to vote. So CU, I don't know if this is still the case, but CU's student body votes for a group of students who manage like a multi-million-dollar budget.
Wow.
Yeah. And they, in that budget, a lot of it is them allocating what is deemed worthy for student resources. And this was after I had left, but the student body that was voted in was very conservative, and their first action was to swipe out any type of clubs or spaces for the communities that felt most othered on that campus. And our program was a part of that. And to just witness that whole process, I don't think I've even realized it until we're talking about it now, has become a key piece to why the organization that I work with now, we have an advocacy lens, because it's not just interpersonal, it's systemic also. And so that had a pretty big impact on my understanding of what it means to be a community member.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I would be surprised if it's still, structured that way. Interesting. So now I want to go to, because you've just worked so many interesting things, ACTivism Theatre Ensemble.
Yes.
Yes. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So it's so funny. There's kind of two. There's an ACTivism Ensemble and an ACTivism 2.0 that has become what we now do at Miramichi Arts. But the origin of ACTivism Ensemble was when I moved to Fort Collins. There was a SAVA, Sexual Assault Victim Advocacy Center, and they also had a little wing that was a theater experience that was educational outreach. And they hired me on to be the director of that program. So we had a group of high schoolers and college students who would come together, and they had hired me on with the hopes that we would recreate the play. So they had paid for a play to be written, and it was causing a lot of issues just because it was pretty outdated and they weren't able to edit it in any way because they didn't have any rights to it. So they brought me in to help devise and create a new play that could then be toured throughout Colorado. And so I modeled it very much after the ensemble that I had been a part of. So we met on a regular basis, and before we even wrote the play, we dug into everything. So there was a lot of education around sexual assault and gender role socialization, kind of from that prevention side, that we dug into. And then we, every month, would come together and devise and create mini scenes or vignettes that we could then patch together in different ways based on whatever performers were available and what the community we were going into was most interested in having dialogue about. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the origin of it. And that also was rooted out of just the matriarchy that I followed around women's rights and the need to be present and active in that community. And so that's how that kind of program started, and we did that. And then I took that concept with me to North Carolina.
Where you are now.
So that's where I was.
Okay.
And then I took that and brought it back to Colorado.
And is that with Mirror Image Arts?
Yep.
Yes. So, and you said that there's kind of a 2.0
that
links to that.
It all ties in one to the next. So having done the ACTivism Ensemble in Fort Collins, I knew that was the type of theater that I was most interested in. I did for a bit the, headshot and resume and going and doing auditions, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I was like, I just want a community of people who like each other, who come together and play and do the work.
Did you feel just, going kind of traditionally to schools that that's just what you're supposed to do next?
100%. 100%. Even in my BFA program, it was like, okay, are you going to go to LA, Chicago, or New York when you graduate? And I was like, is there a different option? Because none of those sound good to me. And it's funny, I've been reflecting a lot the last few weeks about why not just social justice, but why is building community so important to me? And I think there are many reasons for it, but one is because I felt so seen in my home, that was my first really insular community of saying, you get to be exactly who you want to be, and that's beautiful. And that was the microcosm that then kept building. So me not being in theater as a youth, I think, helped me because I was a part of sports. And sports truly is a team sport. You cannot win if you do not play and collaborate with others. And I think that tension that I experienced a lot in theater, which as much as, people say we're all in the ensemble and there's no small parts, it's very competitive. I even remember having not been a theater person coming here and having anxiety and overwhelmed feeling when I'd have to go into my theater classes because I felt like I wasn't good enough because I wasn't a theater kid. But I think that those experiences also drove me to be curious as to why am I having this feeling? Why am I not settled in this theater space? And then being in my BFA program where it was very intense, very cutthroat, but at the same time I was a part of the Interactive Theater Project, I had these two opposing theater experiences that gave me two very different experiences that I found a lot of value in, but I was able to question them and compare them and explore them both. And to me, what I really hope for the next generation of theater makers to see is that theater is the most uniquely positioned art form to build community. I mean, it is about story sharing. It is about the exploration of humanity. And so if we can start to reinvent how we imagine what a theater community can be, I think it can be one of the most powerful tools for social change, which is why I do what I do.
I thank you for sharing that, because I really think that perspective is very much a part of Idyllwild Arts today. In today's language, we talk about the citizen artist. We're very, because students come, 300 students from 35 countries, They decide where home is and where they want to build community and what work they want to do. But it's not something that's sort of left at the door, right? They get to bring that in. And there's so many things happening around the world, in families. And I'm glad that increasingly, not just in the theater department, but you're right, about storytelling and what theater can do to build community. And I think I really think being in the mountains on this hill and focusing on the citizen artist, it really differentiates us from other art schools. I really, really believe that.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's so important. And when I was invited back, it's been so exciting to hear this language and to see that transformation has been, just very cool to get to witness. And I'm, beyond ecstatic to get to come back and teach a class in a few hours. So I think you all are doing beautiful, beautiful work here.
It's really preparing these students for what's ahead. I think about our mission statement, and it very much lives with all of us, but changing lives through the transformative power of art. And I think about so many art schools where it's, about art, what we're going to do with art. And so it's very powerful. It's very powerful here. I appreciate you returning. I don't want to let you go, though, because Mirror Image Arts, I want you to talk about that because its mission is so interesting, and I think our listeners would enjoy learning more.
Yeah. So Mirror Image Arts is a youth advocacy organization based in Denver Metro. I've had the opportunity to be a part of this organization for 8 years. I stepped into the executive director of programs role in July. So one of the ways that we are constantly trying to disrupt the status quo is that we actually have 2 executive directors, believing that nonprofit work is really, really hard. And so it's always better to do it in collaboration. So Teresa Maza is my co-executive director, which has been an amazing experience. And our mission is to disrupt the school to prison pipeline, utilizing restorative theater. And our passion and purpose is to imagine and create collective liberation for all. So this organization has definitely transformed along with me, which has been a really incredible opportunity. And part of our venture right now is in really trying to stake claim to how we do the work, which is restorative theater. And so that name is actually a program that I created in North Carolina about 12 years ago now, and was a program, and now we're actually formalizing it into a pedagogy and a praxis.
Wow.
That we hope to one day do a certification in this style of facilitation and theater. We mainly work in schools and then with youth all along the criminal legal system. So we do diversion programming, we work with incarcerated youth in detention centers, and then we work with youth in step-down facilities as well. And then since moving into this role, we're actually pivoting the organization again to take more of a public health lens. And so we're looking to actually build programming that's prevention, intervention, and reintegration. And so our reintegration program, we're in the process of building out right now. One of the main goals of it is actually having a student to employee pipeline. So alumni of our program will go through a pre-apprentice program to support making sure all of their basic needs are met, and then they can join an apprentice program with us, or we will put them into other apprentice programs in areas of interest that they have. So we currently have our very first apprentice, who was one of my students in a detention center 6 years ago. So that's kind of the next venture that we're on, is the importance of reintegration.
Are you able to, are you collecting any statistics? Are you able to see the impact at all?
So we're in the process. We have a pretty robust evaluation program recidivism is one of the hardest things to track, and also it's really interesting in the restorative justice field. There's a lot of conversation around how do you expand thinking of what success looks like beyond just recidivism. So we're in a process right now of exploration and inquiry into what exactly that means. The hardest part in being able to track is because we work with youth, we don't have access to them at all once they leave, and we definitely don't have access to their files or anything like that. So we're having to get a bit more creative in how we can assess what's happening for our youth.
I just want to thank you for speaking with me today. You're making an incredible impact. I'm so happy that Idyllwild Arts has been able to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work, and enjoy your class this afternoon with the students.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was wonderful talking with you.
You've been listening to One World, One Idyllwild, the series, presented by Idyllwild Arts Foundation. At Idyllwild Arts, we have always believed that art is the greatest teacher of humanity. We continue to believe that the practice of creativity hones each person's desire and ability to affect global change. My name is Pamela Jordan.
To learn more about the Academy and its world-renowned summer program, please visit idyllwildarts.org. To subscribe to the One World, One Idyllwild podcast, please visit idyllwildarts.org/the series. Please consider supporting the students of Idyllwild Arts by visiting idyllwildarts.org/giving to make a gift today. Thank you for listening to One World, One Idyllwild, the series, a creation and production of Idyllwild Arts Foundation. Executive producer, Pamela Jordan. Directed and produced by Rose Colella. Edited, engineered, and mastered by Justin Holmes. Graphic design by Mark Biley. Marketing and publicity by Dana Albright, Molly Maple, and Alice Metcalf. Marketing assistance by Rose Colella. Production and research assistance by Keith Miller. Creative consultation by Palencia Turner. Our theme song is Beaconing, composed and performed by the incomparable Marshall Hawkins. Pamela Jordan was appointed president of Idyllwild Arts Foundation in 2014. Prior to this position, she held the distinction of being the first female and first African American head of school of the Chicago Academy for the Arts, a position she held for 12 years. She currently serves on the board of the Association of Boarding Schools and is also a member of the Global Education Advisory Council for Shanghai Howard Collegiate School, Kushan. One World, One Idyllwild, the series is a production of Idyllwild Arts Foundation. Any use of materials, including reproduction, modification, distribution, or republication without the prior written consent of Idyllwild Arts Foundation is strictly prohibited.